Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Hunter with Rob Outdoors, and today we're going to talk about something that's probably a little bit controversial. How much lighting is too much lighting? Oh man, the lighting's wrong for full flex. So, when you have a truck like the Moose, sometimes you got to clear some trails. So this little Milwaukee Now, we've all seen them guys on the highway driving around that have like a ton of different lights on their rigs. They'll have like a light bar, pillar lights, lights on the bumper, lights in the bumper, you know, all kinds of different things. And you also see them guys that'll have like 2 lights in the bumper and that's it. And this is going to be kind of like more like a realistic video, and obviously just a matter of my opinion because, again, I'm just a dude with a beard and a truck. So I'm going to kind of get into what my experience is with lighting and what kind of led me to make this video, as well as changing some of the lighting around the truck. So down here you can see on my Chassis Unlimited Octane Series bumper, I have 2 XL80s, and for the longest time I used to have 2 Baja Designs LP9s here. And those are a phenomenal light, will give you all the front light that you need. And that was pretty much the only white light that I had. But was it really necessary? And the reason I say that is because I was never, and still am never, the lead guy in the convoy. Now, in my mind, it does make sense if you do a lot of solo stuff to have something that bright that can kick out super far. Because another thing, with those lights, they were designed for like Baja racing, right? Cute Baja Designs, you know. But a light to push out that far, you really don't need in the overlanding and off-road world. You just need something to kind of punch out a little bit, because you're not really going to be going that fast on the trail anyway, or if you're rock crawling or anything like that. So that kind of led me to get rid of them. Again, they were a phenomenal light. I just wanted to move to something a little bit different. And to be honest, these XL80s actually have about the same amount of, just a little bit less lumens than the LP9s, which is actually kind of crazy. And I do have these in an amber pattern, which I'll, you know, again, kind of get into a little later here in the video. So those XL80s used to be here as my ditch lights, and I had those in the white combo lens, so it was a spot plus a wide beam on the bottom. And again, as a ditch light, like, come on, that's like overkill, you know what I mean? So I honestly, when I would have them on while I was driving on the trail, the spot portion of that light was so bright that was pretty much like the only spot that you could see. You wouldn't really be able to tell on the wide pattern, like, or see any of that, just because that, you know, light was drowning out its own light, if that makes sense. So I had these little S2s in the bumper as the cornering lights. I'm sure you've seen them. People turn their wheels, the lights will pop on and they go straight again. And so I ended up moving these to the ditch lights here. I know these are the Baja Designs brackets. I'm sure I got questions about those. But again, like, this makes sense as a scene light because I just need to be able to see next to the truck, you know, in case I'm like close to a ledge or whatever, instead of having something that's going to punch out super far. That way, you know, it's just not needed, and, you know, in my opinion, is why I changed them out. Now, having XL80s as forward light made sense, and that's why I got this combo amber lens and why they're currently in the position of my old LP9s. And if you guys notice, right about there is my front camera. So now I can actually use that, versus where I had the 2 LP9s here. They were really kind of drowning that out and making it pretty difficult to see. In the wings of this bumper, you can mount 2 little 4x4 lights, or cube lights, whatever you want to call them. And I took these off of my wife's Jeep. I had these on my Rebel a long time ago. And they're pretty much a combo amber. Again, I like kind of amber in these lower portions here for obviously dust and snow if you live up north like I do. So I decided to put these back on the truck because we are getting rid of the wife's Jeep, and it just makes sense. Even though I do have those 2 XL80s, been thinking about switching those lenses back over to the white just because of where they are, so I can have a forward white light, and then obviously I have these as fog lights. So right now you guys can see I do have a Skinny Guy camper on the back of this truck. There is no lighting integrated into this as it stands now. My other topper, I do have some lighting integrated into that. Being I have scene lights on either sides, and then on the very back I have 2 chase lights up top, as well as the Baja Designs RTLS, which is like all the signaling, brake lights, turn signals, all that fun stuff. So as far as stuff in the back for chase lights, really, chase lights are pretty important. So if you've ever been on like a dusty trail or something like that, especially now it's been pretty dry up here in Michigan. I don't know if you can see the dirt road behind me there, but people kicking up dust, and it's just super hard to see. And even in the snow time, I'll be, you know, in front of friends and stuff like that, going down like a main road, and they just kick up so much, I guess, snow dust, we'll call it. And you know, it's hard for them to see, and I can barely see brake lights and things like that. So chase lights are probably, if I had to choose between doing like a front light, then do a chase light. I think that makes the most sense to me. And then perhaps like a ditch light too, that way you can kind of see. Or like a scene light if you spend a lot of time at camp doing stuff at nighttime. So typically whenever I see some rigs that just have like the biggest lights and just the most amount of lights that they can fit on a rig, it kind of screams impracticality to me. You know, whether they like the look, I mean, hey, to each his own, you know. Again, this is just kind of my opinion and kind of why I've made some of the changes to my truck. But I guess we'll kind of get into like why you would or wouldn't want to have lights in certain places. So light bar is kind of like one of the OG beginning, you know, lights for off-road use. And I did have one on the Rebel for a little bit, but the biggest complaint that you'll hear guys say about those is light reflecting off of the hood. Now on the Rebel, when I had the light bar up there, I did have like a black film vinyl, so that way it would kind of absorb that. But you can see on this truck I do not have that, so I decided to not put any kind of forward facing light on the roof rack, because one, obviously I didn't want any kind of light refracting off the hood, but I had those 2 LP9s up front, which just made more sense because that way I could utilize all that light and it's not blinding me. Now if you do have a roof rack, of course these are great light mounting positions, and of course I mainly mean that for scene lights. You can see this is a Sherpa Equipment Company Diablo rack for the Ram trucks, and in these handles they essentially make a little mount that you can put a Baja Designs rock light. So mounting different kinds of scene lights on a roof rack is a really good option. I installed these Baja Designs S2 to act as reverse lights, and they do put out a pretty decent amount of light. As I mentioned before, the skinny guy doesn't really have any kind of lighting, just because you can see the hinge here, so that's where the camper will open up, and the sleeping area is above where I'm currently standing. But this is always a good option to have. So here at the back of the topper, you can see I do have 2 Baja Designs S2s. This is a flush mount again in a wide pattern. I use these as chase lights. And then also having some kind of signaling light up top is a really good idea, I think, because when we tend to have swing outs, those can get obscured pretty easy. And you also notice most of the lights that I have on this truck, other than a main forward-facing lights, are actually pretty small lights. Again, that's when you're overlanding or off-roading, unless you're doing some like crazy Baja racing, you do not really need a ton of light output, because you don't want something that shoots out so far it just blinds you, drowns out light. And you know, plus usually with some of these bigger lights, you're paying a little bit more of a premium versus something like NS2s. There's not that much, and you can get adequate light output with it, as you know, as long as you have it in the right position, which I think having an S2 or even like their Squadron series, you know, little four lens light as a ditch light works out pretty well too. So in my opinion, the most of your light, and especially the very first kind of light upgrade if you're going to do, would have to be something to the forward of your vehicle. So like a main, whether that's a white light or an amber light, doesn't really matter. The nice thing is with ambers is they do work better in a little bit worse conditions, such as dirt, or excuse me, dust, snow, things like that, rain. So again, some bumpers will offer like mounting solutions for a little bit bigger lights. Now these I actually ended up welding onto this bumper because you can clearly see I did paint match this to the truck, so it came as raw steel. And then that's what I had the LP9s, and then as well as I having these XL80s mounted here. But if, for example, in this bumper, if I did not end up doing that, what I would do is in these 2 bottom sections here, I would probably put a spot pattern. You know, there's like a Squadron series, seeing how I have Bajas here. I use those as an example. I would put some Squadrons in a spot pattern here, so that way you can get forward facing light. And then in these wings, the next one I would probably do either like a combo that's kind of off to a little bit of an angle, such like this one is, or like a wide lens, kind of almost acting as a sort of scene light, because the way I have these scene lights kicked out is pretty good at not quite a 90-degree angle, obviously you can see here, but they're not really more forward facing. They're more of kind of sideways, so that way while I am driving I can see into, like, if there's a ledge next to me or whatever. So again, I could do like a combo in here and then like a wide pattern lens, I think would work out very well. So realistically guys, what I think Baja does, and they have a great breakdown on like their social media as far as like the science of lighting, they call it, where it's all about placement, lenses, and then what kind of lighting you have, as an amber or a white light. So I would recommend you guys go and check that kind of things out. And this is all just kind of a matter of opinion, but if you're new getting into this and you want to start putting a bunch of money into lights, I would say number one, get a decent forward facing light. You don't have to get like an XL80, but even just like a 4 series or a 4 lens series, you know, combo, have that be like your first light. And then next up, I would get some chase lights, because again, if you're out on the trail with people and it's super dusty, snowy, whatever, it can make it a hassle for them not to see you, and of course you don't want to get rear-ended. Next, I would end up getting some kind of like a scene light, just so that way, again, when you're slowing down on the trail and it's bad conditions, you can kind of see what's all around you, so you're not running into or over different things. Then I would kind of go into some scene lights up in the roof rack. I know I don't have any right now, but that's kind of because they were all in the topper, and now I have this camper, so I'm kind of reworking some things at the moment. But I would get some scene lights, because again, at camp it's just really easy to be able to flip a switch, and you can set up at night a lot easier. You can hang out around your vehicle, see things, that kind of stuff. And then kind of go out filling out the bumper lights for like combo lenses and wide lenses, things of that sort. And again, your ambers are going to be mainly for like your worst series. Now that's not to say that you can't get all amber lights up front and you'll be fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. But that's kind of my little 2 cents in all this. If you guys have any extra things that you think I should do, kind of lighting wise, or things you would swap up, let me know in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. If you are on Instagram and TikTok, you can follow me on those pages as well. As always, we'll catch you guys in the next one.